Back by popular demand, he is our boxing analyst, Corey Erdman, on Fight News Now. And Corey, with a new women's bantamweight champion in the UFC, we might be having you on here regularly to break down the life and times of Holly Holm. It's a new era in the UFC. You watched the fight. What were your takeaways from your perspective?
Well, I mean, obviously we were very excited for Holly Holm. What a spectacular result for Holly. And, you know, I want to make it clear that this fight was obviously not a referendum on which sport is better, boxing or MMA.
I thought it was pretty definitive.
Is that what
Saturday, I saw many headlines.
Exactly. And, you know, that's sort of how people are positioning this. But I will say that, you know, if you find that boxing people were overly joyous about the result, Holly Holm winning this fight, or seem a little bit overly defensive, it's mostly because of the comments made by Ronda Rousey's coach, you know, saying that Ronda could be an Olympic gold medalist, saying that she was dropping world champion boxers, Diana Prazak, in sparring with 16-ounce gloves. You know, that didn't happen. But when you say things like that, combined with the fact that Ronda was on the Ring magazine cover, not me necessarily, but a lot of people who are overreacting to this, they get defensive about that, and they feel that you're trying to suggest that boxing is something that you can just pick up and master like that. And it was vindication for a lot of people who have that type of attitude.
Looking at Ronda Rousey and what she takes from that fight, I mean, is this a fight that can go dramatically different in the rematch? And for it to do that, what does Ronda Rousey have to change, whether it be her coach, Edmond Tarverdian, or does she stay with what brought her here and just alter little things?
Well, you certainly can't say with the same coach, because when you have a coach who at the end of the first round tells you that you're doing fantastic when you're absolutely not, that's not someone that you can stick with. And sometimes I would say, hey, that's okay. Sometimes you do have to lie to your fighter in the corner to give them a little bit of confidence. But when you have a track record of lying about your fighter's skill set, when it comes to striking, when it comes to boxing, then I can't give you a pass on that. Ronda's going to have to find a new coach. Obviously, she's not going to be able to, in the course of a year, even 2 years, get on Holly Holm's level when it comes to boxing, but maybe she can learn enough to be able to get to the inside where she can win that fight.
We now shift our focus to the boxing world. This Saturday, a very big fight with Miguel Cotto and Saul Canelo Alvarez. Now, before we talk about the actual fight, can you explain to us what is going on with the sanctioning fees and just explain, because I don't think enough MMA people understand how sanctioning fees work with some of these organizations.
Sure. So basically, if you want to fight for a title in boxing, you have to pay said sanctioning body, in this case, the WBC. So don't worry, the fight is still happening. Yes, this fight is still for the overall lineal middleweight title. So none of that matters. But what has happened is that the WBC title that Miguel Cotto held is no longer on the line. So Cotto initially had to pay, Cotto and his promoter Rock Nation had to pay $800,000 in order to get Gennady Golovkin to step aside to allow for this fight to happen, because he was the mandatory in the rankings. But then, apparently 2 days before the fight, when they were dealing with the final financials when it comes to sanctioning fees, the WBC asked for an additional $300,000 and an additional $25K from the promoter on either side. Cotto said, I don't really need that. I mean, what am I going to pay $1.1 million for just to have another belt in my house? I have a lot of belts. The real belt is really on the line here, so I'm not going to give you $1 million just because you're strong-arming me. So that's what's happened. That's how ridiculous sanctioning fees are, and I think it's equally as ridiculous that Oscar De La Hoya would come out and say that what Miguel Cotto did was wrong, but clearly he has to play the game because belts are marketing tools, and Oscar is a promoter.
And you get to a point, though, where a fighter greatly eclipses any championship they're over. I will tell you right now, I cannot tell you what titles Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya for.
Exactly.
But I know that fight took place, and I know that 2.4 million homes bought that.
Well, it's the same. Listen, you cover wrestling as well, and people always talk about the guy making the belt. In this case, Miguel Cotto makes that WBC belt. So he validates what that belt means. He doesn't need to pay him. He can do a lot of things with $1 million.
What intrigued you most about this particular fight? These two middleweights, and it seems that a fight with Golovkin is very much there for the winner at some point in 2016.
Well, I'm intrigued by the potential atmosphere. Anytime when you get a big-name Puerto Rican fighter and a big-name Mexican fighter in the ring together, it's always a spectacular crowd. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. But what intrigues me about this fight is that I can make a definitive argument on either side for why either guy can win. You know, I can say, hey, Canelo has all these physical tools tools. He's maybe a little bit more athletic at this point, maybe a little bit more powerful, and as a result, he should win this fight. But I could also say, hey, look how intelligent Cotto is in the ring. We can see some of the flaws that Canelo has, like he needs to set his feet before he lets a combination off. Surely Miguel Cotto can see that, and surely he and Freddie Roach can come up with a game plan to thwart that. Again, I could make an argument on either side. It's as much as the odds favor Canelo, I think rightfully, again, because of the age and the size difference, I still see this as a toss-up fight.
What has it been about Freddie Roach that he's been able to get out of Miguel Cotto, and that relationship that just seems to very much click for Cotto?
Well, I think what we'll find out in this fight is whether or not it really is that relationship and that association with Freddie Roach that has improved Miguel Cotto, whether it's just been wonderful matchmaking. You know, whether Cotto has been able to blitz through Daniel Geale and Delvin Rodriguez and Sergio Martinez, who had 2-shot knees, whether it was more about that or whether it was more about what Freddie Roach could actually get out of him, and whether Freddie's just getting credit for some excellent matchmaking that was made there.